Hello newcomers and old. I am sick as a motherfucker. Or at least I was. I mean, you can hear me, you hear how I sound, but I'm not as sick as I have been. And I have been bedridden for almost a week and a half. That's how sick I've been. Therefore, no videos, no new art, no new review, and therefore everything got cocked up. Nice start to 2020. But, you know what? I've had enough. I am doing this now. I don't care if I break my voice doing this. I need to put shit out. So, here we are. With that said, this time we are taking a look at the presents. An undertaking which I thought would be easy, because the first time I saw this movie was on Netflix of all places. But looking for it turned out it had been scrubbed from their servers. Not really a problem, a simple Google search turned it up on Vimeo, but I was forced to pay for a digital file. I don't condone piracy in any way. You want media, you pay for it. You support the creators, but I don't like the idea of paying for a non-physical digital file. And I don't like the idea of paying for a movie and not being able to hold it in my hand and place it upon the relative safety on my shelf without having to rely on the whims of the internet for access to the thing. So you may wonder why I didn't just order a physical disc from Amazon. Very good reason for that. I completely forgot it was Christmas. The thing would never arrive until February. Imagine how late I would be then. You may also be wondering, considering the time, why I'm not reviewing a Christmas movie. Very good reason for that as well. That's not an easy request to make when it comes to found footage movies. The only found footage movies that I can think of that takes place during Christmas is Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension, and I don't want to review that first thing. I would much rather review the whole series first. But at least this one takes place during Christmas. After its isolated premiere, local cinemas throughout Germany were inundated with calls requesting them to screen this movie across the country. Its cult following growing so large, it's occasionally taglined the German horror movie. The Presents tells the story of three friends who spends a fortnight at a supposedly haunted Hochnau castle as a spooky holiday experience, only for things to turn out worse than they could have ever imagined, leaving them asking, "Kann ein Ort böse sein? Can a place be evil?" It's a German horror movie, so that should tell you right now whether you want to see it or not, no matter what I say about it. And on that note, I also want to take a moment and say I am sorry to all Germans out there for the way I butcher your language. You'd think as a Swede I should be able to pronounce your language without you wanting to dig your eyes out with a spoon, but I can't. What I can do is give my 2 cents on what I think about your movie without you wanting to stab your eyes out. After a brief intro where I get to explain it's pronounced Die Presents and not Die Presents, and which I'm actually sure at least one ripoff would be called if this movie was big enough to have ripoffs, even though this film is actually a ripoff of Paranormal Activity. The movie is supposedly based on the Rosenheim poltergeist, a real-life supernatural event that took place in Bavaria in 1967. And I say supposedly because the only damn similarity between the Rosenheim incident and this movie is weird stuff happens. The Rosenheim incident took place in a law office. This movie is set in a castle. And the Rosenheim incident started with phone calls. This movie doesn't. I can go on, but suffice to say, this movie has more in common with Paranormal Activity than it does the Rosenheim incident. And also, the Rosenheim incident was largely discredited. And after the events, a journalist visited the law offices, and supposedly he found nylon wires tied to the lights fixtures that, when pulled, would make them behave a certain way that would make them seem as if forces were affecting them. So Claiming your movie about a real haunting is based on a probable hoax is more than a bit awkward, so let's just ignore that. This is Marcus and Rebecca, played by Matthias Dietrich and Liv Fries, not Live Fries. Marcus has a surprise prepared for Rebecca, a romantic getaway at a real castle in the German countryside, with the addition of his best friend Lucas there to be there. On a production level, he's there so there can be someone else to hold the camera, and while Marcus and Rebecca has drama on the side. And also it gives Daniel Greco, the writer, the leeway to go, see? And there's 3 people here, and Paranormal Activity only had 2, so it's completely different. Personally, I think it would have been a lot more convincing if he'd maybe, I don't know, had Lucas take a more active role in the investigation, and, I don't know, maybe investigate the castle per Marcus's instructions, while Marcus was trying to make the getaway romantic for Rebecca. Just saying, it would have made it a lot more convincing. But disguise what, I hear you ask? I mean, look, Marcus really has planned a romantic getaway. There really is a castle, and they really are going to stay there for a week and a half. What a good boyfriend!
Bleiben wir die ganze Zeit jetzt hier?
Ja.
Wie, und was machen wir hier?
I'd actually want to know that. I mean, I get staying in a castle is an exotic experience, but what exactly does one do in a castle? Mow the lawn? Swim the moat? Climb the walls? I've never stayed in a castle. I need some help here. I don't get to find out, because in reality, Marcus and Lucas have a hidden agenda. One they must keep secret from Rebecca, lest it be compromised, so naturally, they'll work hard to make sure she doesn't.
Wir weihen Rebecca ein. Die ganze dreckige Wahrheit.
Or decide honesty is the best policy when you've already emotionally kidnapped her. It turns out they're actually there because the building is supposedly haunted, and Marcus is hoping to record definitive evidence of the existence of the paranormal as part of a paper he's writing. And the reason they dragged her along is because Marcus is a douche. I actually need to break this down. Marcus convinced his girlfriend that their stay at a castle was a romantic getaway, so he could surreptitiously try and document a real-life haunting. No idea why he didn't just take Lucas and go by himself and tell his girlfriend, hey, I'm gonna be gone for about 2 weeks, but don't worry about it, I'll be back soon. No idea why he did that. But having seen this plot in The Goof Troop, I assume the reason is that their relationship is bad and he's trying to mend it while being as selfish as possible. But the movie makes no effort to explain this, and immediately upon getting settled, he confesses everything. He confesses that he tricked her into staying at a haunted castle, and surprise, surprise, she finds this stuff creepy. Is he trying to sabotage their relationship? Either way, it all comes down to Marcus is a douche. A gaslighting douche because after expositing the backstory of the castle, and Rebecca said that she's scared of these things, he tries brushing it off as nonsense even though he's there trying to prove it isn't.
Wenn Becky sagt, dass sie was blöd findet, findet sie es in Wirklichkeit richtig gut. Sie hat ein bisschen Probleme, sich auszudrücken. Also hier gefällt sie ihr richtig gut.
Congratulations, the entire audience is looking forward to watching you die. At night, the camera picks up a Paranormal Activity style bass tone and some footsteps in the background, strangely enough in that order, and Rebecca wakes up from a nightmare to perform a really strange calming ritual. In the morning, when they review the footage, she explains it's a way of returning to reality after a bad dream. The only thing I could find that remotely resembles this is prisoners of war being trained to repeat only their name, rank and service number during torture, so you can look forward to this becoming part of the plot somehow. Okay, basic stuff. If nothing scary is happening, if there is nothing to create tension, loud noises do not work as jump scares. Because there's no tension to disperse, they're not scary, just annoying. Next day they go to examine the castle's many nooks and crannies. Rebecca remains unimpressed despite Marcus pressuring her to enjoy it as much as he does. But when examining a tower room, the spooky atmosphere becomes too much for her and she runs off. And the guys following her forget the camera. Okay, I admit that was... and you had to go and make it stupid. Following this, we get a handy step-by-step guide for the coming events, and a half-baked argument for how people fear poltergeist activity because they don't understand it, before spooky stuff can start happening again.
Mann!
Now, this scene is actually really cool, and it starts slow with distant wails and banging in the background, and for the bass tone slowly rises again, and it's gradual, it's unsettling, and then... the ghost zooms the camera in on Rebecca. That's just dumb. But things are finally starting to happen, so that's good. A pigeon smashes into a wall, all of their food has gone moldy, doors are left open, things are scratching in the walls, and Marcus exposits backstory and digs into what poltergeist activity actually is.
Diese Aktivitäten, Manifestationen von ist das Unterbewusstsein waren.
Some people believe that poltergeist activity are actually bursts of psychokinetic energy, and that is generated by stress among the living, and as opposed to someone dead. And it's usually revolving around a young woman for one reason or another. And in that sense, if you believe in that theory, poltergeist activity actually have very little to do with the dead. And it's an assumption made from the observation that poltergeist activity usually revolves around a person as opposed to a building, which is the most common sort of haunting. It's also a very weak attempt to make parapsychology come off as a real science. Anyway, Marcus is left to consider someone might be exacerbating the activity. Lucas has a football, and Rebecca has had just about enough of this place.
Die da wären?
Dass wir zusammen sind, dass wir gemeinsam Zeit verbringen, dass wir an einem magischen Ort sind.
Ach, guck mal.
Hä?
Der Penner, der hat aufgehört.
Stimmt.
How fucking hard was he kicking that ball for them to be able to hear it outside the stone building 100 meters away? No time to think about that, because Rebecca steps behind Marcus, and because things stop existing when they leave frame, that means she's vanished into thin air.
Becky? Becky?
Oh, don't worry about it, she's right behind you. Now in a much happier mood, which seems to aggravate the ghosts somewhat. Okay, whose idea was it to have the camera be a vessel for the ghosts? This isn't Ratter! Lucas lost his ball, so he gets creative with how to entertain himself, like playing the knock-knock game with the ghosts, and they are unexpectedly enthusiastic.
Hey! Hey!
Warte mal.
Ist hier jemand?
I like this scene. The lighting makes it feel claustrophobic and the distorted noise of the ghost is very unsettling. The movie gets on a roll now with some legitimately creepy scenes and jump scares that actually work. With that said, I don't understand why they wouldn't turn on the lights. They don't establish the switches don't work, so it comes off like they chose not to turn them on. Were they worried they'd scare away the ghosts? As far as I know, it's monsters that are afraid of the light, not ghosts.
Markus, ich hab so eine Angst.
Becky, das sind nur Geräusche. Das sind nur Geräusche.
Ich hab so scheußliche Sachen geträumt.
Becky.
Well, Marcus ought to be pleased considering he's finally experiencing actual events and can finally start studying the phenomena for real. It'd be nice if he did that. Or remember he was supposed to. At all. Pretending to do something useful, he starts setting out bear traps to prove it's not rats in the walls, which makes me wonder if he'll plant landmines by the entrance in case of intruders. And Lucas starts questioning if maybe Marcus is setting up the whole thing for his paper.
Wenn du sowas glaubst, dann komm mal hier rüber und schau dir die Aufnahmen an.
Pass auf. Da. Hier, mach mal. Ich glaube, sowas ist überhaupt noch nie aufgenommen worden.
More spooky stuff happens. And at night Lucas shows Marcus the castle's master's grave, which he found in the middle of the woods. Somehow. Why he couldn't show this in daylight, I don't know, because Rebecca doesn't go to sleep until they come back, so it wasn't to hide it from her. Oh yeah, Lucas grows distrustful of Rebecca later, because reasons. At night, Marcus decides to try getting an interview with the ghost. At night, in the attic, with the bear trap. This is so incredibly stupid, Casper takes pity on him and helps him out.
Ich habe das gestern genau gehört. Die sind alle zusammen zugeschlagen. Alle auf einmal.
Oh, Casper was just protecting you from yourself, dumbass. And your girlfriend from you.
Aber die Kamera doch nicht. Ich schon, aber die auch Schatz. Ey!
Mach die Tür auf!
Lass mich da einsteigen! Nicht jetzt! Hör auf!
He wants to leave, she wants to stay. Understandable. Why is he not letting her leave? This so-called romantic getaway was from start to finish a cover for him to poke ghosts with a stick. There really is no reason for him to keep her there. At best, I'm guessing it's because he's aware the ghost is interested in Rebecca and therefore he wants her to stay. Or he believes that letting her leave will somehow damage their relationship. So he's either just a selfish asshole or he's downright stupid. Rebecca, Lucas and the ghost themselves all agree it's a really damn good idea for them to GTFO. So, when Marcus refuses to listen, the ghosts become a bit more vocal, something like they're about to tear the building apart to try and get them the hell out of there. And they still stayed! Kill them. Kill them. Fucking kill them. I don't care anymore. Kill them. These people deserve to die, okay? Hey, they're not victims. This is not a tragedy. This is the universe taking out its own goddamn garbage. Kill them. Just kill them. Kill them now. Kill them. Calming me down for a little bit, we do get a genuinely unsettling few seconds here. Let's ignore the mirror image capturing the future there and focus on the way Rebecca moves. The unusual gangly movements. The insectile stiffness. It doesn't look natural or put on. Literally looks like something strange has taken hold of her body. It's clearly done by having the actress move backwards and then reversing the footage, but I think it looks really good. However... they kept the reversed sound. I have no idea why they did that. Don't tell me it was because it was too hard to edit. I'm only an amateur editor, and I know how to edit that. And no, it wasn't creepy. It only illustrated how the effect was done more clearly than it already was. And that only helped to break the illusion, so yeah, I have no idea why they did that. The last half hour of the movie feels bizarrely like the world's most drawn out continuous climax. The plot simply pauses in lieu of scene for scene of gradually rising tension, scares and hurt, with no development or change. Lucas finds the door to the dungeon has been unlocked. Rebecca keeps becoming possessed, and Lucas becomes less and less trustful of her. Waking again from a nightmare, Rebecca goes over her phone number again, and unexpectedly, the ghost decides to call her. Reciting her number lets the ghost call her. I'm familiar with the idea of inviting evil in with an open door, but that's a novel interpretation of that idea. Still, good on the movie for explaining that. If they hadn't explained it with her reciting her phone number and then the ghost calling her, then the crank calling ghost would have made no sense. And it's very important that they did that, because this connects to the plot by... Well, it's just like the Rosenheim incident. And because in the Rosenheim incident, there were scary activity on the phone lines too. And the phone company, and they build the law offices and for far more phone calls than could realistically even be made with a rotary phone at the time. So it's just like that. Of course, the only reason anyone knew about those phone calls was because they were built for them. Because even though there were lots of activity on the lines, the phones never actually rang. Well, shit. Next, the car keys vanish, leaving them stranded as Rebecca has become too sick to walk. But it doesn't stop Lucas from trying.
Eins steht fest. Ich gehe nicht mehr zurück. Wenn ich jetzt 20 Kilometer durch den Wald muss.
I agree. 20 kilometers is not an insurmountable distance to walk, but are you seriously telling me you are dumb enough to try and walk that distance through the forest? Even without a haunting, that's a terrible idea. See? You ended up in Burkittsville. Rather than dealing with the Blair Witch, Lucas opts to return to the castle just in time for doctors to fall and things to happen. That wasn't scary. Rebecca decides to take a midnight stroll before telling Marcus they're going to die tomorrow. And then they walk home to find Lucas beside himself, because all of their stuff has been turned over, and worse yet, someone has painted on the mirror with raspberry jam.
Warum hast du hier alles durcheinander geworfen?
Ich? So, fängst du jetzt auch an zu spinnen?
Okay, now I know Marcus is fucking stupid. He's been experiencing paranormal events. He believes it's for real, but this he believes is the work of Lucas. Does he think ghosts only manifest in front of a camera? As if to hammer home how stupid they are, the next day they find the key to the car, and instead of leaving straight away, Marcus says they'll leave in the morning. Now the ghosts have had enough teasing. Time to get this show over with. Lucas wakes up possessed and wanders off. Then Marcus wakes up and goes to look for him, only for Rebecca to vanish as well. Not finding either of them in the dark woods, Marcus returns to find a video playing on his computer, showing how Lucas was followed by the entity before being dragged off screen shouting, "Don't, Marcus!" revealing it was Marcus all along. Or the ghost just took on his appearance for some reason. Either way, Marcus must flee, but not without Rebecca, and ignoring all sensibility, he looks in the dungeon and finds her, only to quickly decides he don't want her no more. So he runs, or he tries to, as the ghost decides he should be possessed again, and forced into a playthrough of agony. And finally, with no worse torment to offer, he's flung out of a window from the top of the tower. Oh, and Rebecca is alive. Sort of. Okay. Well, that was The Presence. It's not unwatchable. Is this a sparkling gem, unjustly cast to the fringes of public awareness, with the power to make the spiteful reassess their hatred for found footage? Fuck no, it's a bare-bones haunted house flick with a smaller budget than the Blair Witch Project. But there is a B-movie charm to it that reminds me of train wrecks like Cabin Fever or See No Evil. You know it's bad, but it's got a shallow serving of flavors you enjoy, so you keep watching. The movie can best be described as if Paranormal Activity was rear-ended by Grave Encounters. The supernatural events are mostly very minor, but blown way out of proportions by the characters, and feels truly terrifying despite how often it comes down to cooperation between the Foley guy and Shaky Cam. That said, the weaknesses in this movie keeps it from delivering a lot of the time. In both Paranormal Activity or Grave Encounters, the characters had reasonable explanations for why they don't just leave. In Paranormal Activity, the events were restrained enough to not make it apparent how much danger they were in until the very end. And in Grave Encounters, the building itself shifted around them and kept them from leaving. The Presence comes down to the characters just being conveniently stupid. As for the directing, it was all over the place. I felt like Greco wanted to outperform Paranormal Activity, and in that pursuit he didn't much care for how it happened, he just wanted to get to the spooky stuff and stay there for as long as possible. It feels disjointed and doesn't make sense a lot of the time, but the movie delivers on the unsettling with very little build-up or tact about it. About the characters, in found footage films, I usually expect all characters to die before the end, and I don't always bother becoming attached to them. But this time I actually found myself wanting to see them die, and in the end the film didn't disappoint. Their fates aren't the most original, but they satisfied my dormant sociopath and felt cathartic after all the bullshit this film put me through. The Presence is a basic bitch horror movie, shot as a found footage film. The plot holes abound, and the story is nonsense, but it's got all the trappings of the genre presented adequately. I recommend it mostly as a background noise at a party, or possibly as kindling for a good roast with your friends and lots of alcohol. But as a movie, you should only watch it if you're desperately bored and have watched everything else. I'm not gonna rate it numerically because I'm still not entirely pleased with my numerical system. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, leave a like, share it around, and give a comment if you want. And too. I have been KawScratches, and I hope you will see me again next time to take another look at what I found.